Thank you, Karen. Dave, would you read what you sent me?
Oh,
Dave?
sure. Yeah, we're going to introduce our guest speaker. Harold Christ is a well-known businessman and developer in Pinal County. He is the original developer of Gold Canyon Ranch at 3,300 acre master plan community. And that's why he's commonly known around here as Mr. Gold Canyon for that reason. So after graduating from the University of Tennessee, he worked for the Gulf Oil Company in their real estate development division. He was in charge of condominium development in Tennessee, Florida, Colorado, as well as Arizona. Mr. Chris made his home in Tempe and began working for UDC Homes on their first Arizona project. At the same time, he began acquiring land in the Superstition Mountain area, which was to become Gold Canyon Ranch, the first development he did on his own account. Harold has survived the market downturns and that have occurred in Arizona and has gone on to build several developments in Pinal County, including Pecan Creek and Copper Basin. Harold has always been intrigued by the history of Pinal County and has bought and restored several historical homes. He presently is restoring and living in the Clemens land and cattle home built in 1865 in Florence. He and his wife own and operate the Windmill Winery in Florence. I highly recommend it. They host over 250 weddings a year and are ranked at the top 5% of wedding venues in the United States. The best part of the Windmill Winery for Harold is being able to produce unique Arizona wines. Welcome, Harold, and please let us hear from you.
Yeah, and let me add a word or two. Harold, you've been preceded as our monthly guest speaker by the former mayor of Apache Junction, Jeff Surdy, who is now our Board of Supervisors representative. We've also heard from the present mayor of Apache Junction, Chip Wilson, as our guest speaker. And we've also heard from Mayor Bessich from Superior as a former guest speaker, plus the president of the Gold Canyon Business Association, Mike Lamb. So welcome again, Harold, and thank you for being our historian in residence, so to speak, for Gold Canyon community. And we will, after your presentation, if you don't mind, if you'll be available for any questions and answers.
Be glad to. Roberto, thank you. It's always fun to see you again. We've been neighbors. We were neighbors for a long, long time in Gold Canyon. So I always enjoyed your artwork, your ability to just to keep the Board of Supervisors and different people in tow. So it's been fun to watch your career. And David, thank you for pursuing me to get this done. We've been trying to do this for a number of months, but with so much going on with COVID and so forth, it was difficult to to put it all together. I guess the first question that I always get asked about Gold Canyon is, how did all this happen? And where did it all start from? As a little bio said in the beginning, I really had wanted to get out and do some things on my own. And I was not financially capable of doing things in Mesa or Tempe. The cost of land was so high, but I'd always been intrigued, I guess, by the old Western movies, the John Wayne type movies where you saw the beautiful desert, the saguaro cactus, the palo verdes and so forth. And as I would drive down US 60 going to Globe or Superior, this particular property always intrigued me. And so in 1971, I bought the first piece of property in that area. All that was there was Kings Ranch Road. There was no drugstore on the corner. There was nothing up and down Kings Ranch Road until you got up to Kings Ranch itself. And the cattle guard was there. By the way, the cattle guard now resides, the cattle guard that was at Kings Ranch Road and 60 now resides here at the Windmill Winery. People cross it to get in. They were going to dump it, get rid of it. Those of you who know me a little bit know I've never thrown anything away, and we just kind of keep preserving things. And so it's here. If you ever want to come and drive across it again, here it is. So in '71, I bought this first property. It was, I think at the time it was a few hundred acres. And so we took that in and began to entitle it through the county. And that began a long-term relationship that I've had with Pinal County, with working with the supervisors and the different planning departments and so forth. And we were getting ready to kick the project off in 1974, by the time we got all the pieces put together. If you go back in history, you will see that that was the first oil embargo put on us by the Arabs. And as a result, we were a long ways out, as Gold Canyon was at that time. The Superstition Freeway went as far as Mill Avenue. And those of you who travel back and forth into Phoenix, that's the first exit when you leave I-10 coming east is Mill Avenue. That's as far as the freeway went. So if people weren't going to be able to get gas, they were not going to come out and find us at Gold Canyon. So we just put things on hold for a period of time, kept doing the planning and whatnot. And I even found out later when I was talking to some of the supervisors and the planners, I said, gosh, I really appreciate you giving us the authority to go ahead with this when time is ready and so forth. And they told me, they said, we didn't think you were ever going to do this. So we just did it out of sympathy to you, so you wouldn't feel bad and you'd get your entitlements and so forth. But we never thought it would really happen. So with that type of encouragement, we just kind of kept going. The first things that we did was to build the first 9 holes of the golf course. Now it's much different today. I'm not sure how the holes are numbered today, but it started where the clubhouse is up there, and then wound around into Mountain Brook Village and so forth with the one lake that's down there. So in building it, I could only raise enough money at the time to build 9 holes. Well, those of you who play golf know that 9 holes is not the most exciting thing for golfers to play, but that's all I could do at the time. So golf courses especially the greens, are built on a sand base, and then the greens are shot with stolons. It's not sod, it's not seed. Nobody told me that there were a lot of deer that ran through Gold Canyon at the time. So we shot the stolons one day, got it on, it looked beautiful. And we came down the next morning and every single green had been torn up by the deer who'd gotten in and dug through and had a great meal that we'd provided for them. So I'm thinking, gosh, you can't build a fence around this thing. Certainly can't build it fast enough. Deer are pretty good at jumping over fences. So I went to the store. I bought 9 transistor radios, and I put them on each one of the controllers on the 9 greens, and I turned it on to the Larry King talk show. And we never had another deer bother any of the greens. So we finally found a good use for some of these talk shows by doing something like that. So there was just, I wish, that's why I wish sometime that we can get together and, face to face, and we can tell these stories, for a long, long time. The biggest thing people used to tell me as we were beginning to do that is, you're really not as smart as you look when you're doing those kind of things. This is going to be a tough go for you. And I can remember that first day that we opened the golf course, we had 9 or 10 people show up. And I told my wife that night, I said, we're going to die here doing this. This is not going to end well. But then as things began to unfold and the freeway kept creeping out this way, it began to happen. Robert, you remember our Secretary of State, who later was to become the governor of Arizona, Rose Mofford, was from Globe, and Rose and I had become good friends, and I invited Rose to come to the groundbreaking of the resort. And we'd had a well-known Phoenix architect work with us to develop this and so forth, and develop the plan. There's a great story for the resort itself, which I don't have time to tell you. That building is very different in a lot of ways. And So Rose was going to come out. I wanted to do something different for the groundbreaking. I didn't want to have a shovel and, you know, the usual things that people do. So there had been a strike that had gone on in Globe, Superior, Miami, through all of the mines and so forth. So we had a wonderful work crew of people who came with us and helped us do the physical part of the development in the early stages of Gold Canyon. In that group, were guys who really handled dynamite really well. They knew how to do this, and we had a lot of dynamiting to do to build these water lines and so forth throughout the property. So I said, let's take and step away from kind of where we're going to build, but let's set some dynamite in here. We'll cover it with dirt. When we set it off, there'll be this big cloud go up, and that will be a little different way of doing it. So Rose shows up, and those of you who might remember her, look her up. She had the big hairdo, the big white hair. She was just a wonderful, wonderful lady. And so she came, and I said, Rose, here's what we're going to do. I had this box over with a battery and whatnot. And I said, we're going to take these two wires when we're ready now, and you can put these two wires here, and this will set up. And she said, you mean like this? And she set them together like that. Nobody expected it. It just went off, you know, with all these people standing around, and scared the heck out of everybody. But that was kind of the beginning of what began to be the resort. The golf course itself and whatnot was that particular day. So the idea of where the name, because I guess the other question I get a lot of times is, where did the name Gold Canyon Ranch come from? Because there was no Gold Canyon Ranch before. There was King's Ranch, and that was it. We called, if you go to the east side of kind of over an area where Roberto lives and so forth, you go over on that side of the property, there was an area called Mesa del Oro, and there's a sign up there that says that. And that's what we called it. There's a sign in front of where the golf course is today that said Mesa del Oro. And my thinking was, let's use the name Mesa. Maybe the people will think it's a little close to the town of Mesa. And then Oro with the gold of the superstitions and so forth. So that was how that began to come together. But then as we got into it more, we realized this is not really a name that you're going to get you know, a lot of branding and a lot of things out of. So we had a contest amongst the employees and amongst the vendors and so forth that we're using, and said, let's have this contest and let's come up with a name that's really unique and so forth. And that's how the name Gold Canyon Ranch ultimately happened. So you had the gold, you had the ranch, and you had the canyons up in the superstitions, and that's what brought it all together. And that was the name that ultimately stuck with it. So it was fun. Those are fun times, especially fun times for me in so many ways, because we got to do a lot of very unique, different things. One of the best things that came out of it that Abe can testify to is that's where I met my wife, was when we were building a resort. And so this was a place that was really special to us. So the one or two more stories. Apache Land, the movie studio, which unfortunately burned several years ago, was thriving at the time. And I got a call from Kenny Rogers' manager, and the manager said, "Hey, we're going to be doing another of the Gambler series. We'd like to come and stay at your place. And by the way, Kenny is going to be doing a new record album, and we'd like to shoot the pictures at the resort." So I thought, wow, this will be tremendous. You know, this will be great publicity. So here the entourage came. They were doing the movie and whatnot. And so they shoot, I wasn't even aware of when they shot the piece with Kenny in it for the album itself. But a few weeks later, I got a call from the manager who said, "Hey, the album's out. We're going to send it to you. It's the one with Dolly Parton, where you see Islands in the Stream," I think was the name of it. And so there it was. I got it. It's got the great picture of Kenny standing in front of this big white wall. No mention of Gold Canyon Ranch, nothing that had anything to do with it. So we got zero publicity and so forth out of it, because nobody knew where. Could have been a white wall done anywhere. So there was all those kind of opportunities. We met a lot of great people through the years. We've been fortunate to have some wonderful people that have moved into Gold Canyon. You guys, some of you have been pioneers, and you've seen, I think the best part to me, besides the people, we had wonderful employees that were dropped on us just at the right time, like the guys coming out of the mines, like different contractors and so forth. They just all happened to appear at the right time. And my life has been full of those type of opportunities. Every place that we've been, it happens today, here at the windmill and so forth, same thing. We get to very unique people with very unique skills that show up. But the thing that I always enjoyed about Gold Canyon, I always felt that this is not going to be encroached upon. We were surrounded by state and federal land, and you guys have done a great job in holding the fort, so to speak, to keep things from happening in the surrounding area. And I think it'll always maintain on that basis. So I don't know, I can keep going, a long time, but if you'd like to ask some questions, we can do that, or we can tell you some more stories if you'd like. But
Harold,
yes,
it's really remarkable how serendipity happens to bring people together.
yeah,
And as you know, I was born and raised in the Globe Miami area. And when the copper strikes went on, it had a devastating effect on families in Globe Miami. And Rose Mofford was always one who was there supporting the people from the copper mining communities. And it's fascinating that she took part in your opening of the project. And of course, she's someone that I've known my whole life. And several years ago, after her passing, I devoted 2 years pursuing an effort to name the US 60 in memory of Governor Rose Mofford, the first woman governor of Arizona, and a dear personal friend of mine. And so when you talk about how she got the unexpected explosion going, it's typical Rose Mofford. She was a fascinating woman, and it's no wonder that you and Rose were brought together by circumstance. But again, you mentioned cattle guard. It's fascinating that even a US president, who will remain unnamed in my remark, when he heard that there were X number of cattle guards all over the western states, he complained and said, that's a travesty, that's fire those cattle guards. We don't need that many cattle guards out in the West, not realizing that they were the impediment to livestock crossing into heavy traffic. So it's fascinating to hear your recollection of Gold Canyon, and I want to open it up to questions from our guests. So anybody have a question, please feel free to ask it.
I have a question. So this is Matt Bartola. So it's a bit of a personal question, but I live out in North Gold Canyon, and my house was actually built in 1953. So I was wondering, around that time, what was really out here? I know that we have the Lucy King Ranch House, which is just, right down the hill for me a little bit. But is it safe to say that I live in one of the first homes in the area?
Yeah, you're actually living in King's Ranch, then, are you not? If it was
Well,
built in-
hard to say. I'm on Yaqui Lane.
yeah, that would be the original King's Ranch. Julian King built that area in the late 40s and early 50s when he came back from World War II. He and his wife Lucy. It's one quick story about them. You notice how the roads through there's not a straight road in there. They're all kind of zigzag around and so forth.
Oh yeah, and they've changed over the years from what I've heard.
Right. So the story is that he had a little Ford tractor that he would put Lucy on the back of with a roll of toilet paper, and he would go through dodging the cactus and so on and so forth and the trees so they would preserve those. And that's what then they would come back and grade the roads in with, was following that trail of toilet paper that they'd put out. So fascinating guy. And you could read that story in one of the books. That it was a lady, I forget her name, from Kings Ranch, who wrote a great book about the Kings, which you would enjoy reading.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, with that being said, is there justification maybe to look into registering my home as a historical place?
I would think so. I would think the Historical Society would. I mean, there's some really fascinating homes up there that you know, have great character to them. That I would think would, you know, would have a lot to them. As I think again, as my bio said, my wife and I are restoring an 1865 adobe home here in Florence, and other than being a money pit, we're having a lot of fun with it, you know. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
Harold, I've got a question. You, of course, have the wonderful project down in Florence, and we have the Superstition Vistas major development going in, and Apache Junction's involved, and of course, Gold Canyon a bit and everything else. What do you know and what do you understand about how far that's going to come down and how soon it might start being developed? And how involved are you in that kind of communication?
Well, I mean, we're involved to the extent that a lot of the political side of what's going on with it and what's going to happen. The big issue for that area is going to be water. And so that's an area that we've been involved in for the last several years, because Arizona has a serious water problem now with the drought and whatnot that's going on. So that could hold it up for a period of time. Apache Junction is fortunate that they just, the state just sold a good sized piece of property to them and then into the Queen Creek area. That will probably happen in a relatively short time frame. But the overall master plan of Superstition Vistas is going to take some time to work its way through, again, primarily, I think, because of the water.
Any other questions, comments?
I'm unmuted now, I think. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Harold. I just have a question, and it goes back to in 2007, I think it was. I believe I met you at some of those meetings at the P&Z when we were discussing the rezoning back on Peralta Trail.
Yeah.
Do you recollect that?
I do, yes, sir.
You were at one or several meetings. Anyway, I was really astounded that we lost our objection and the voting went in favor of changing the zoning to high density housing. I'm still curious as to why they came to that decision, bearing in mind the access infrastructure, etc. Do you have any input on that?
I was surprised as well. As you know, again, an area where Roberto lives, we tried to put larger lots. Those were 330 acre lots and acre lots and so forth across that whole piece in there. So I was surprised that happened on that basis. I think it's the pressure that is brought on by builders and developers who are looking for density and looking at it on the basis of what the bottom line is ultimately going to be. We were fortunate back in our day. We had enough property that we could afford to put some larger lots in to buffer things with. And that Sandy Smith was on the Board of Supervisors at that time. Things like the hilltop, the Dinosaur Mountain. We wanted to make sure that nobody graded areas off the top of that. If you go down to Saddlebrook or up to Fountain Hills, you'll see where they built homes on top of those hills and mountains and so forth. And it just destroys, in my opinion anyway, what the aesthetics are for everybody else who's living in those areas. So we've tried to do that, and I don't think you'll find any place in Gold Canyon where that has happened. But now it begins to follow up with people who are have acquired adjacent land, and density becomes a real issue for them. So that's the only answer. It's not a good answer, but that's the only answer I can give you, because I was very surprised as well.
Mm.
And Harold, that is one of the motivations for the nonprofit group that we've organized here in Gold Canyon Community, Inc. Because I do remember looking out my backyard towards Superstition Mountain, and there was a trail that was bulldozed up towards the mountain. And as soon as my neighbors and I saw that, we got busy on the phones, and that came to a halt. But we felt that we need to institutionalize a process where growth can happen, but that it can be managed in a way that improves the quality of life for those who are here and those who naturally want to join in the area that is so attractive. So yeah, I think it just calls for groups in the community like ours to remain alert and engaged in the process. So thank you again for your pioneering work in being a reasonable builder who set in motion a sense of people getting involved in how they want to see their properties and their surroundings developed.
Very key thing, I think, to property values and so forth. Everybody puts a lot into their homes and so forth, especially in an area I felt that is beautiful and has the potential that Gold Canyon has. And it doesn't take much to get it sidetracked with things like you suggest, the road. I remember when that went up and so forth, and it was startling to see that happening. But you're 100% correct. I mean, an awareness of all of you who make Gold Canyon your home is what it's going to take to preserve that. We need to be looking at this next generation. What's this next generation going to inherit? Which is, we probably shouldn't go there right now, but because there's a lot of interesting things going on. But anyway, I'm really concerned about the next generation. I'm concerned about my grandkids, and so forth, and what they're going to get. And I want them to see things like Gold Canyon that you guys are doing a great job of preserving.
I have a question. Oh, Harold, this is Marsha Lundell. I live in Fairway Views on your first 9 holes.
Yeah. I got a great story. I got a great story about that I'll tell you sometime.
I can't wait to hear. Do you know anything about the new owners of the golf course? I hear they're planning on building quite the either apartment or condo complex, and I'm trying to figure out where that would be.
I read that. I do not know them. I'm familiar with the properties that they are suggesting that they're going to do these things on, and it's going to be tough. You're going to want to watch it because I don't think it's not going to affect you. I don't think there's anything down in your area, but back towards Gold Canyon East and some of the areas along Dinosaur Mountain, you're going to want to keep an eye on, because that is where they're thinking they could do some of these things. And I just don't have enough information to be able to know what it's going to be, but you should be, and you obviously you are aware that something's going to happen.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Harold, we have a question.
Sure.
Just curious about the status of the Gold Canyon bypass, if you've heard anything about that.
That's been an interesting topic through the years. And again, our friend Sandy Smith on the supervisor, she was very active and so forth, and trying to get that through. All of us have been, I don't know, the only word I can come up with is terrorized by the traffic that happens through there. Even to this day, when the Renaissance is on, it affects us down here in Florence because we've got people trying to get down here, not aware that it's happening and so forth. So Mayor Surtee, Supervisor Surtee has some ideas that he's put forth as far as alignments and whatnot. It's going to take an effort by you all to continue to, and really all of us. I mean, we need to do the same thing down here because it's a mess, and we need to stay on top of that as things begin to unfold, especially as these pieces of state land that are now being sold and coming into, as Abe is suggesting, into the Superstition Vistas, concept. That's going to heighten it even more. But that's the time maybe that we can get something pushed through there, to help that. But you need that badly. It affects a lot of people.
Yeah, and Steve, this is Roberto.
Yeah.
It's one of the priority topics that our Gold Canyon Community, Inc. is engaged in. We are collaborating with all other organized groups here in Gold Canyon to try to influence the Arizona Department of Transportation in helping us relieve the traffic congestion on US 60, including the bypass, including improving the condition of US 60 and diverting as much as we can some of the heavy commercial traffic that is creating safety concerns on US 60. So we're on top of that issue, and we continue to hold almost weekly meetings on that topic. So thank you for sharing your
Yes,
concern.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We have open mic now, so anybody?
Steve,
Wishes
you're
to-
muted. You're muted, Steve.
Sorry.
There you are. He's
There.
back now.
Unmuted. Harold, this is Steve Knauer.
Sure.
We're beginning our group to engage the community in the near future in a strategic plan for decision making for the community that ultimately will formulate some type of community plan of the future of Gold Canyon to do exactly a number of things that you just suggested, preserve what we've got. I'm just kind of curious, I'm going to put you on the spot. Paint me a picture of Gold Canyon in 25 years in your view.
Wow, the old cliche, that's a great question, which everybody uses so they can buy a little time to think about something. But it is, I can see if it is properly managed, I can see Gold Canyon not changing a whole lot. If it's not, if you lose control of the things that we've been talking about here, the bypasses, the mountaintops, and so forth, it could be much different, and not in a positive way. So I think 25 years, I spent 35 years of my life involved in Gold Canyon. It seems like it was yesterday. My wife doesn't say that, but it's an effort. You have to put forth the effort to stay on top of what people are doing, just like we were talking about the density issue in the adjacent property and so forth. People have different ideas, and they're not going to always match up to what your dreams and aspirations are. What happens in and around the resort should be watched, so that if and when they do something that it adds to the value and doesn't take away from it. So I think you've got a great future. I think the original master plan is done in such a way that the entitlements are set to where lots can't be split, and we went through a lot of that throughout the county, and you just don't want to see those kind of things happen. So I would just keep a watchful eye to make sure that that there is the kind of future in there, the kind of dream that we all had and have had for Gold Canyon.
And Harold, again, this is Roberto. We're very much aware that that is a major challenge facing us. And for that reason, we put together Gold Canyon Community Inc., this nonprofit. We are collaborating with Pinal County. We're drafting a memorandum of understanding that will permit us to serve the region of Gold Canyon in identifying challenges and opportunities and working with Pinal County to preserve these innate values that cannot be replaced. And in doing that, we've also engaged the services of Arizona State University. We've been meeting with them, and we have already received commitment from Arizona State University, and we've met with them several times already. We're meeting with them within the next 2 weeks, and we've already committed a team of faculty and students who will, for various years, work with us to put together a well-designed plan on how to take advantage of the natural beauty around us, preserving but opening opportunities, like I say, to help everybody enjoy a better quality of life in the area. So your cautions are well taken, and we are working diligently to providing the mechanism through our 501c3 that is sponsoring this meeting that you're a guest of today.
That's a great idea. Anytime you can get ASU involved, the supervisors are going to pay attention. Your constituents will pay attention. They do a wonderful job in that whole planning real estate department at ASU, and that'll stand you in good stead.
Thank you, Harold. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none.
Well,
Harold?
actually, if I just could, I've got our screen blocked because we're in the midst of eating breakfast, and I thought it would be rude to do that. But
What are you having for breakfast?
eggs and fruit.
Oh, all right.
Anyway, Harold, we're enjoying your talk this morning. We're snowbirds, so we're here back in Thunder Bay, Ontario, in Canada, and when we first came down to Gold Canyon, in I think it was about 2006-07, we were introduced to the golf course there, and then subsequently we rented condos in Tesoro, and in 2018 we bought a home in Mountain Brook, and it is just a remarkable area. It's such a gem, and we've really enjoyed some of the stories you've shared with us this morning. Now, have you ever considered putting pen to paper and publishing a book about your part of the history of this community?
Oh, that again, I have thought about that. We all think that we've got more time and we'll do something tomorrow, and we got to take advantage of the moments we have. I'm writing now a little history on my father, who was a wonderful entrepreneur who worked for the State Department and whatnot. And I didn't realize how entrepreneurial he was until I saw what he did in South America with virtually nothing. And so I know so many times we miss the chance to have these type of discussions where we really find out who we are, what got us here, the stories, the history of what happened in Gold Canyon prior to my getting there. It is fascinating. Tom Collenborn, who's passed away, has written some great books on the superstitions and on Gold Canyon and so forth. So there's a lot that could come together in that. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, and I will endeavor to do that. I should have been doing that during COVID. You know, that would have been a good time to do that.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And you mentioned Tom Collenborn. I recall one column that he wrote about a white stallion in the superstitions. And I started to contact him. I never succeeded in contacting him, but it brought back to memory that when I was a young boy living in Superior, there was a white stallion that would come into Superior off of the superstitions. And all of us would really get excited. But at that time, it was really an open range in Superior. Burros walked around uncontrolled, stallions, other wildlife. But I always wondered whether the fabled white stallion that Tom Collenborn wrote about was in any way related to the white stallion that I personally remember seeing come periodically into Superior. So there's a lot of wonderful legends and stories about our area. And it shouldn't be left to Harold alone to write down these memories. I think each one of us has a story within us. And I encourage each of you to consider writing a narrative about your experiences, because as an 88-year-old myself, I began to wonder about whether I've done enough to communicate within my family, my extended family, what I have personally witnessed, because the state of Arizona is only 20 years older than I am. And so each one of us has lived through some significant chapters of Arizona's history. And I encourage you to write your memories and recollections and to share them in meetings like this. So if any of you feel inclined to offer yourselves as an opportunity to speak at any of our monthly meetings, we'd welcome hearing from you. In the meantime, Harold, thank you very, very much for sharing a wonderful piece of your history here in Gold Canyon.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you all very much. I hope that you'll come down and we'll have a glass of wine together.
Thank you.
One plug, that's all I got in.
Thanks, Harold. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Harold.
great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you for saving that cattle guard. I really miss it. Being from Chicago, I had never seen one before.
It was so much fun because we lived in Mesa del Oro for many, many years. And in the evening, you could hear every car clear up.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, and it actually was a traffic hazard because when it would rain and it camp,
filled up.
It would fill up, and then also if it wasn't filled up and it was still wet, you'd apply your brakes and you'd end up in the middle of US 60. So thanks everybody, and until next month, please come and join us again at our monthly first Saturday meeting of the month. Thank you again, Harold.
Can I say
you.
something, Roberto? I would recommend, based on what you're talking about, it would be very interesting if people could record something about Gold Canyon and your experiences, and we could collect that and put it on our website. That would be an interesting exercise. So if anybody has is so inclined, please shoot a short video of your recollections of Gold Canyon, send it to us, and we'll put it on our website. It'd be a nice addition. Yeah.
It's the basis for the formation of a historical society is what it is.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Matt, you could give us a tour of your house and we could put that up there.
There we go. Yep.
There you go. Okay.
Well, without any other further business, the meeting is adjourned until next month. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.